Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, there's truth to the reality that everyone can relate to aliens coming to your hometown and getting up to no good. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, basically anywhere you get your podcasts. Hit that subscribe button and the like button and give us the 5-star rating. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel, so you can give us a like and subscribe there as well. We would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to follow us on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, and we're on the Instagram at, where else? We're In the Seats, for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I say this a lot, but it is the most important, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if we love to write about it and talk about it, we love it when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please pay us a visit. On this one, we got a fun little movie, a little bit of Canadiana that hit theaters and on demand this past Friday. It is the fantastic adventure science fiction film called Slashback, and done with a completely Indigenous cast and ensemble. And it's the story of young Maika and her ragtag friends, and they discover an alien invasion that is kicking off right in their tiny little Arctic town, and it's up to them to save the day using makeshift weapons and their knowledge of whatever horror movies they can get on. The aliens quickly discover that you just don't mess with these girls from Pang, and it's such a fun ride. It's shot completely up north in Nunavut with a Indigenous cast and from an Indigenous storyteller and filmmaker who we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with, Nyla Innuksuk. She is the co-writer and the director of the film, and we asked her about the origins of the story and working with these kids and so very much more. And you know what? It's just, again, it's a fun film. If you want to check it out, it is available on video on demand or in select theaters across our great country. But first, enjoy our talk with Nyla, because between you and me, it's a pretty good one.
Obviously, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Obviously, congratulations on the movie. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I guess my first question is just walk me through the origin of the story on your end.
Yeah, I think that I grew up loving adventure, action, horror movies like Goonies, E.T. And I mean, I've probably watched those movies a million times. And then when I was having a chance to kind of make a first feature, I really did think about my childhood in Nunavut and adventures with my friends and my brothers. And it felt like it would be a really fun way to explore a story like that in this place that I grew up.
No, for sure. And I mean, it's a fantastic ride. And I mean, I absolutely loved it. And I mean, I think for me, as sort of a genre fan and a horror fan, something I really appreciated was just the fact that the aliens were a little masked. There was a little behind the scenes. Like, you weren't necessarily ruining the moment with sort of an effect shot that you couldn't afford kind of thing. How important was it for you to sort of have these creatures, I mean, still obviously be aliens, but not necessarily sort of be overt, sort of like any kind of big reveal, you know?
Well, that the figuring out the aliens and the creatures, that was just a really kind of fun process in that happened in different stages. And so initially, having this kind of almost monster movie kind of thing happen, that was really kind of fun to explore. And we did have to figure out how, because this is an indie movie, practically how are we going to be paying for this? And so having crazy VFX was never going to be a possibility for us. But I love practical effects and the
Totally.
way those can look in some of the movies that I grew up watching. I love, so I actually, there were scenes in there where I wanted even more practical effects, like where the bear actually was, I had with our amazing team that did a lot of the practical effects, a full bear suit made for Troy, who's our contortionist. And it's this huge bear suit that he would actually wear upside down. And so impossible to walk in. And I had him running down a hill. And it looked so good, but so weird that we ended up deciding that it was a little distracting. So we replaced it with a CG bear. But I love exploring those kinds of things and seeing, and the practical, making the skin suits practically. With Steve Newburn did our skin suits, and it was just really fun to kind of work with our actors and get those made. And then and they were really creepy and fun to kind of play around with. And then we got to work with Troy James, who's this amazing contortionist, and he was really fun to kind of be like, okay, how would you, if there are these creatures, these aliens that take over the bodies of animals, and they don't really know how to move like an animal, like how would they operate? And then sometimes we needed two aliens at once, and so we had Ophelio, who was a stunt and did more of the stunt heavy stuff. He also was kind of getting lessons from Troy on movement, in case we needed them both to be in the scenes at once. And so all of that stuff, I mean, I'm got a big smile on my face because it was so much fun. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I love. And making movies is so stressful. So, and you can be having times to just where it just really feels like, oh man, it almost feels like being in high school with my friends, you know, making movies and you know, getting fake blood everywhere. It was a real blast. And so all of that kind of stuff was really fun to explore.
Well, I mean, I love that you use a contortionist, and I mean, there is such joy in doing stuff in camera, and I mean, a lot of that does come through in the film as well. And I mean, I think the joy of the film comes through in the cast as well. I mean, talk to me a little bit about your casting process and finding these girls, because they're all fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, the cast is amazing. These teenagers are awesome. The Alexis, who plays Jessie, and Chelsea, who plays Lena, and Nalajas, who played Uki, they were all involved really early on. They actually were all in a proof of concept that I shot probably 5 years ago. And so they were much younger, obviously. And then they were involved in the script development phase with Ryan Cavan, my co-writer. We spent time in Nunavut. Chelsea and Alexis would take us out on boat riding and to cabins. And then just the dynamics of those girls and their relationships with each other helped inform the script. How I found those girls was through and casting the proof of concept was by holding these acting workshops, because there's no casting directors in Nunavut. There's a normal audition would have just been kind of strange. And so we had this theater actor, Christine Tutu, who ended up working in our props department. She helped me with these acting workshops because I'm not an actor. And it was so much fun. And I had this script for a proof of concept. And so in that process, I'm, you know, trying different girls out with each other. And then we ended up finding Tatiana eventually, and who ended up playing Maika. And Frankie, the littlest one, she actually is the sister of Alexis, who plays Jessie. And so I just was picking up Alexis from her house one day, and Frankie answered the door and was like, "Hi, I'm Frankie," and then was talking a mile a minute. And I was like, well, I asked her mother, I was like, does this one want to audition too? Because she seems great. And so the next day she came and joined us, and it was kind of funny because Frankie was 8 years old when we filmed, and she was the only one where I was like, okay, well, we don't have to worry about Frankie, because she always knew her lines, always was super prepared. It was really funny. She was so great, and but all the girls were such a pleasure to work with, and because we had this relationship that had existed before, even our producers or the rest of our crew certainly had come on board, and so it kind of started with us and just trusting in each other that we could kind of make this crazy idea happen. And so now seeing them as 17-year-olds picking me up from the airport with their driver's license and stuff, it's kind of crazy, but so great to see how they've grown with the movie.
Well, for sure. And I mean, in watching it, there's a real honesty to the dynamic between the girls, because I mean, on one end, there is the obvious idea that, I mean, this does feel like it is pushing back against maybe some sort of preconceived cultural norms of the girls saving the town, but also at the same time, it fits in the genre so well because they are the ragtag misfits. They are the underdogs. So of course they're going to save the town. How important was it for you to sort of try to have this not just be sort of a positive female message, but also to have it sort of hit the genre like right in the sweet spot at the same time?
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. It was really, I knew that kind of going into this, if with an Indigenous movie, with Indigenous actors and a director, that some people might see a group of Indigenous teenage girls facing this invading threat as a certain way, or just apply a certain kind of metaphor onto that narrative already.
Right.
That I didn't want to be heavy-handed with any of that stuff. I wanted and hanging out with the girls, it really was when you're with them, we'd be going out hunting or fishing and going to the cabins, and the whole time all they're talking about is their friends and boys and who's dating who and all of this stuff. So kind of like figuring that out was it was a really kind of fun process, and it was for me, when I was thinking about this alien invasion, this threat. I had filmed in the community of Pang when I was younger. When I was in college, I'd done a documentary about the tradition of square dancing in Pang, and I had visited with I was going to say a small crew, but it was just me and a producer from the National Film Board, and we. And I fell in love with this place. It's so stunningly beautiful. And then I ended up having nephews. My nephews are from Pang, and now they're 5 and 7. And so this idea of them growing up with an alien invasion movie that takes place in their hometown was something that was really, I just thought was really cool. And it was important to me that it seemed cool and fun. Because I think that we've seen our community is represented and our trauma represented a lot, but to show young women and their friendships and the importance of friendships when you're 13, 14 years old. And then for these girls, finding pride in where they come from and this decision that it's worth fighting for. That was important.
Well, and I mean, it's the beauty of genre too, because I mean, it shows just, how across culture, across gender lines, there are these groups. And I mean, the Goonies are universal. Like these bands of friends are totally universal. And I mean, just to put a bow on this, I've got to ask, and this is something I always love to ask people, like, can you think back to the younger days? Was there sort of one movie in your life that you saw where the light bulb went off and went, okay, I got to do this. I got to be a filmmaker?
Yeah. It was, I mean, I think watching The Birds when I was 8 years old was definitely this kind of turning point for me. It was just, I think that it was almost a little traumatic because 8 years old is young to be watching Hitchcock, especially that movie, which with the eyes being poked out. So that movie, I think it just, the feeling of getting away with something, and that my mom was actually the one that introduced it to me, so I was allowed to do this. But then in that same vein, when I've got an older brother, and on his 13th birthday, he had some friends over and they were watching the movie The Shining.
Right.
And my mom kept me from going in the room and said, basically, they're watching the scariest movie that's ever been made. And so you're too young to watch it. And so I was like, when can I watch it? And because it was his 13th birthday. So she said, when you're 13. And so it was almost this like mythologized this movie for me, that it was the most terrifying movie that you have to be a certain age to watch. And so then on my 13th birthday, of course, I went to the video store and watched the movie over and over again. And it was, it was just this idea that I just loved, that scary movies were somehow kind of a part of my thing. And then growing up in the 90s with movies like Scream, and The Sixth Sense. And it was just this kind of, I think as a teenager, such a fun, place to kind of escape. And then certainly as I became a teenager and with my friends, we really did just spend lots of our time making movies and dressing up our siblings and cousins, and so just the fun around movies was a big part of growing up for me.
Well, Nyla, thank you so much for the time today and making something that's going to contribute to the fun of movies. Again, congrats on the work, and thank you so much again for the time. Again, this was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.